Hello, and welcome to Collaborative Communication in Special Education Dispute Resolution with Special Education Mediation Services. Special Education Mediation Services is a grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education Office of Special Education. It offers free mediation, IEP facilitation, and collaborative communication training to schools and parents across Michigan. It is a federally mandated program that enables the Office of Special Education to meet its obligation under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act to provide statewide mediation services at no cost to schools and parents to help resolve special education disputes. So why are we here? Every year we attend meetings, events, presentations all over the state and consistently hear from educators and families that they've never heard of our services before. Or they'll say something like, "I wished I had known about you last week." We believe the more educators, family serving agencies, and families that know about us, the more students will be served throughout the state of Michigan. We love to attend special education related conferences, family serving conferences related to children with special needs, speak at parent advisory committees, speak with intermediate school districts, local education agencies, public school academies, and charter schools, as well as provide professional development. As you may know, Michigan is a birth through age 25 state with regard to the provision of special education supports and services. And as such, SEMS services are also birth through age 25. Our overarching goal is to foster cooperation and effective teamwork among those who plan a student's education to help the decision-making process and ultimately improve student outcomes. We provide these services wherever we're needed, where the family and the school agree to meet. This is a local location within the district, or perhaps virtually. And sometimes if needed, the location is local and neutral. For example, the meeting does not need to be in a school building. So how do we do this? Well, we help foster cooperation and effective teamwork through our free, effective, and fast mediation and meeting facilitation services. In mediation, a neutral mediator helps lead families and schools through a problem-solving process to resolve conflict and come to an agreement on a plan that is focused on the student and their outcomes. With facilitation, we help navigate complex meetings such as an IEP, IFSP, a behavior plan, really any meeting that has to do with a student's special education supports and services to help team members stay on task and ensure all team members are heard equally. This is a good slide that helps summarize the differences between our mediation and facilitation services. We'll get more into the specifics of each of the services coming up throughout the presentation. In mediation, it's typically when you know you disagree about something. Your goal is to resolve a specific dispute. The process is established by the mediator. It is only attended by people who are in disagreement with one another. For example, it's typically a decision-making member of a school district and the family members. And the mediator must remain neutral. In facilitation, it can be used when you need help navigating complexity. We like to remind people that for either service, you don't need to wait until you're angry with one another to reach out for help. Our goal is to help complete the process efficiently and collaboratively. In facilitation, the process is established by the school, and it can be attended by the entire special education team. But also, in facilitation, the mediator must remain neutral. What is especially important to note is that they are both voluntary processes in which each party wants to be present. To put it simply, mediation services are for when you know you disagree and want to try to put a solution in writing so that something clear can be done to make sure it's followed. Facilitation services are when you know you need some help navigating complexity. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about when to use mediation. Most people use mediation when there's a conflict or a specific dispute, when our needs or wishes are different from the other parties. Perhaps this is a disagreement over eligibility for programs or services. Maybe you have a differing interpretation of an evaluation. Perhaps you need support over developing and implementing a transition plan. Transition can be at any stage of transition in a student's education, all the way from preschool to kindergarten and high school to post-secondary. Maybe we're having some discipline issues and we need to come to agreement over how to handle those. Any service delivery with regard to special education supports and services can be mediated. Frequently, we mediate communication and relationship issues. For example, perhaps we have a family member who's consistently texting a teacher in the middle of the night. That's an example of a communication issue. We also can support mediation use through a due process complaint or a state complaint. So let's talk a little bit about the role of the mediator. They will remain neutral. They're going to be conducting the mediation. They'll ensure that all parties have equal opportunity to express their ideas and thoughts. They're going to make sure everybody abides by the rules for appropriate conduct. For example, they're not going to allow people to talk over one another, grandstand, name call, things of that nature. They're going to help the parties stay on the topic of their disagreement, which is the student. They're going to guide the participants toward creating an agreement, and they're going to help record the agreement. They won't take sides. They will not give legal advice. They do not make a decision on behalf of the team, and they can't enforce decisions made by the team. And who are the people who serve as mediators? Well, they're not all attorneys. They can be attorneys, but they can also be social workers, educators, any community member that's interested in the collaborative process and would like to be trained. Typically, they'll go through a 40-hour civil mediation skills training, followed by a period of practice before they may be referred to special education mediation services for specific training in special education mediation and facilitation. Once they're trained by SEMS, there'll be another robust period of practice and continuing education before they begin to mediate or facilitate meetings on their own. And we're quite proud of this fact that we have a nearly 75% agreement rate with the teams that we support. So what might mediation look like? Here we have a scenario of a student named Allie who receives services under an otherwise health impaired qualification and has been having some escalating discipline issues in school. Her family says it's related to bullying, and these issues have resulted in a 30-day suspension from the bus. The family and the school relationship is so bad that the parent is not allowed in the school, and the school says the bus video will back up their decision. So what might a mediated meeting look like, and what might a mediator do in this situation? Well, the mediator is going to work to get an agreement on the predominant issues to be resolved, which is agreed upon by the team. The mediator is going to ask the school to please describe the situation and how they believe the behavior is impeding Allie's education and environment. And the mediator is going to ask the family to describe their side of the situation. They'll go through a summarization of each of the parties' descriptions, and they're going to ask clarifying questions that help get them to areas of agreement. The mediator will build on those identified areas of agreement and help parties develop a written agreement that captures all of the actions each must take to help ensure Allie's success. So what does this agreement look like? Well, a mediator is going to open a working document called a mediation agreement. And again, they're going to ask questions to assist the parties in writing this comprehensive agreement in their words. helping ensure that the who, what, when, and where are included for each action item, so that anybody who reads the agreement, such as Allie's teachers or bus drivers or classroom aides, are going to know what was decided upon and how to implement this plan. So the agreement was to create a functional behavioral assessment. From that, the school will create and establish a behavior intervention plan as soon as possible. This behavior intervention plan is going to help inform amendments to Allie's IEP, and daily data collection will be shared with the parent. There'll be start dates, completion dates, specificity over where things will be incorporated as amendments to the IEP, and also both the family and the school will sign the agreement if they come to an agreement. It is possible that people don't come to an agreement. Remember, I said we had a 75% success rate. But when that does happen, families and schools will also sign a document that said they could not come to an agreement. Remember, mediation agreements are written by the family and school. The mediator cannot decide the issues for them. Here's another example of a mediated agreement. We have a student who's 11 years old and in the 6th grade. They have a functional reading level at 3rd grade and a math level at 4th grade. And there's no reported behavioral issues. The issue is that a state complaint was filed over least restrictive environment and individualized education program implementation. We have a student in a self-contained autism spectrum disorder classroom, and their parent objected to this placement because the students in class had much higher support needs in addition to no interaction with general education peers. The mediated agreement was to have daily playground and specials with the general education peers and reconsider seating assignments based upon behaviors of classmates. Another example is services on an IEP for speech therapy were not being provided for almost a year due to staff shortages, causing a loss of growth and learning in the student. Additionally, the parent wasn't notified until February, and a meeting wasn't even held until late April. So the agreement was to enroll the student in extended school year every day for a month in the coming summer, with 30 minutes each day of speech therapy. They would have an assessment at the end of the extended school year and another meeting before the school year starts to determine speech therapy needed during the day and if there's additional need for speech therapy outside of school hours, otherwise referred to as compensatory education. If the district hasn't hired a new teacher, they will pay for outside speech therapists that the parents agree to utilize. Parents will be reimbursed for travel to and from private therapists. Frequently, we get asked if attorneys and advocates can participate in mediation or facilitation. Yes, they absolutely can, if one or both parties are represented. However, mediation is designed to let the family and the school learn how to communicate with one another and develop solutions to meet student needs. And in this scenario, you may experience a mediator directing attorneys and advocates to let the parties involved be the ones who are speaking. And this may even result sometimes in what we call a caucus. The benefits of mediation include the fact that it's voluntary. Nobody can force anyone to participate in mediation. It's also confidential. All of the conversations held during a mediation are confidential and cannot be repeated to others outside of the participants. People sign a statement of understanding acknowledging this confidentiality before they begin to participate. Participants control outcomes, right? So rather than an outside agency, the State Department of Education, for example, families and schools get to control how the problem was resolved. They result in written binding agreements. So you'll sign a mediation agreement. Both parties will sign a mediation agreement, and this agreement is binding. It can be attached as an addendum to an IEP, and it can be used as supporting documentation in any court of competent jurisdiction, should the need arise. But what we really like about this is that participants become more self-sufficient. Schools and families learn how to resolve their own problems, and solutions remain local. Dispute resolution costs will decline, leading to more time and money spent on educating students. So let's talk a little bit more about facilitation services. So when do you use facilitation? Again, we want to emphasize here that you do not need to wait until there is conflict to request our services. We can support any meeting that has to do with a student's special education supports and services. It could be a complex issue. It could be that relationships are strained or people are feeling uneasy about the meeting. Maybe the team needs help focusing on the student needs versus each other's personalities. Again, we'll support any IEP or IFSP or any meeting related to those. And we absolutely will facilitate disagreements. We can also be involved in the more formal dispute resolution processes, such as a manifestation determination review meeting or a resolution session related to a due process complaint. So who are facilitators? Well, facilitators and mediators have gone through the same training and use many of the same skills in a facilitation as they do a mediation. However, for this particular service, the school will determine if the facilitator runs the meeting or be used as a helpful observer to help guide conversations so that all the parties are meaningful participants. Again, they'll receive information about concerns in advance of the meeting from both the family and the school. They'll acknowledge or review the agenda, making sure people understand the agenda items and the meeting guidelines. They'll make sure everybody abides by rules for appropriate conduct. We're not going to talk over each other. We're going to give everybody ample opportunity to speak, and we're going to really help people practice their effective listening skills. They're going to keep the meeting centered on the students' needs. They will help negotiate disagreements if they occur. They're really great, efficient timekeepers. They're going to keep the meeting on track and on time, and they will conduct the meeting if it's requested by the school to do so. They are not part of the team. They do not give legal advice. They do not take sides, and they will not make a decision on behalf of the team. Remember, mediators and facilitators are not advocates and are obligated to remain neutral. Advocating for a school or a parent could upset the balance between them and make solutions harder to reach. So what might a facilitated meeting look like? Okay. Well, the facilitator may or may not run the meeting again. This is up to the school district. They're going to ensure that parents get to share their thoughts and ideas. They'll ensure the school gets to share their thoughts and ideas. They will seek to find out if additional information is needed. They'll make sure the team's focusing on the students, and they're going to reiterate areas of agreement to ensure that we're recording this information in appropriate areas of the document. So we have a scenario here. We have a student named Jimmy who needs additional support for toileting in preschool, right? So what might some communication look like? How might the facilitator help the family and the school communicate over this, right? They're going to be asking questions. They may ask the school, what does toileting look like for Jimmy in the classroom environment? What successes do you have in the classroom environment? And then conversely, they'll ask the family, what might this look like at home? And what types of things do you do to help Jimmy be successful at home? And how can we see that he's doing these things in both places? How can we support one another? Maybe we create a communication plan over equipment needed. Perhaps it's pull-ups or something like that, or a change of clothing, and we write an agreement that has the family sending those supplies every Friday so we can start the school year or the school week off on Monday with the supplies that are necessary for Jimmy to be successful in school. Those are just the types of things that a facilitator can help lead the team to help create a plan for Jimmy. So really, our overarching goal at Special Education Mediation Services is to improve communication and relationships. We want to help create a safe space for families and schools to problem solve and build their collaboration and communication skills because we want to help improve student outcomes. So to request free services from Special Education Mediation Services, you can call our 1-833-KIDS-FIRST number. That's 1-833-543-7178. Or you can visit our website at mykidsfirst.org and complete a form. Once we receive that form or answer the phone, you're going to participate in the intake process. Our team of intake professionals are going to ask you all the questions necessary in order to determine the best process or the most appropriate process. And also, there are forms that they need signed. For example, if a family member calls and initiates an inquiry over perhaps having a facilitated meeting or a mediation, the intake team is going to need that family member's permission to then call the school and talk about their student with them. And they help get both parties to agree to participate. Once all of that information is gathered, we will contact the appropriate parties, arrange schedules, and process paperwork. And then simply the parties meet with the mediator or the facilitator to help come to a resolution. Often, we'll get phone calls on a Friday that ask for services first thing Monday morning, and we will do everything we can to help meet that obligation and that request. But please know, it does take some time for all of this paperwork and all this information to be gathered, and we cannot guarantee turnaround that quickly, but we do our very best. So again, this is more information about how quickly is it that we can help, right? So the intake staff must contact both parent and the school district, right? We're going to get connected to a regional service partner. We're going to gather all the applicable student records requested. For example, if we're facilitating an IEP meeting, we're going to want that documentation. We're going to schedule the meeting based on the parties' availability. A mediator or facilitator is going to be assigned on a random, rotational, or otherwise impartial basis from our statewide roster of mediators. And then, as I previously mentioned, a statement of understanding will be signed that goes through all of the, rules and regulations and the process that goes through the process. For example, it will discuss the confidentiality of mediation, things like that. And again, we make every effort to meet all service requests, but please know that we can't always turn it around as quickly as teams would like us to. Here's how you can keep in touch with Special Education Mediation Services. We have a website, mykidsfirst.org, loaded with lots of helpful information. We also produce a quarterly newsletter, and on our website you can sign up to subscribe to that newsletter. And we have social media on Facebook and Instagram, so please seek us out and like us on our social media. We offer lots of tips and tricks throughout the week on our social media platforms, as well as advertising special events that we'll be at. We also have communication workshops that we offer at no cost to school groups and family serving agencies such as departments of health and human services, therapeutic clinics, things like that. And here are the topics that we can offer. And we will also customize topics upon request, depending on what is needed. Just reach out to our office at 517-334-0034 to inquire, or you can also submit an inquiry on our website. And remember, SEMS is free, we're fast, we're confidential, and we're effective with that 75% agreement rate. And once again, here is our contact information. We'll pause here for a moment should you need to record it. 1-833-543-7178. Our central office is located in Okemos, Michigan. You can email us at info@mykidsfirst.org, and you can visit our website at mykidsfirst.org. Thank you so much for watching today. If you have any other questions in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Have a wonderful day.